these people that aspire to simplicity and plainness and to a lack of images, which reveals something very positive, which we saw in these church fathers, which is this notion that you cannot circumscribe God, you cannot understand God. If we say aniconism represents that, but it also has all these problems that go along with it, then should we just not have plain churches, or what's the approach?
Yeah, and I guess personally I would say I'm not quite sure, like that's something, like, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Like I can see either side of the argument. I think there's going to be an argument coming from the iconodulic side that, well, if you don't have images, then you don't have something imaging you these important truths, and you're not going to be able to hold things stable. And part of that's like a theological argument that you're denying or leaving out an important part of Christianity. And I think through some of the arguments that you've made, you can kind of see the point in those arguments. I think like all I would say is kind of what I've already said is you need, at least you need a modified aniconism that is, again, it's grounded within the broader church that includes icons. And if you're going to remain healthy in an aniconic setting, then the truth that you're imaging needs to constantly be regrounded by those who are imaging the other side of things, the other part of the faith.
So in some ways, we'll just talk about these as if they're two different churches. There's the church that has icons and the church that doesn't have icons. And these things, especially the church that doesn't have icons, in order for it to be healthy, then it needs a relationship with the church that does have icons.
Right.
And then the symbol of not having all these images, it doesn't get separated from the rest of it. It doesn't become a symbol that, like the negative things that we were listing off of, like there cannot be any beauty in this place. Everything must be pure and perfect and spotless. Because if you're nested in that larger tradition, then you can see no, there is a place for beauty. In this body right here, in this building, we have a message for the world. And it is a message of humility and simplicity.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the idea that you can't comprehend God is like an embrace of simplicity.
Yeah. Well, this is closely related to the idea that in order for the church in the 4th century to remain healthy, like once it finds itself in a position where it's no longer persecuted, and even beyond that is elevated into a position where it's given recognition and prestige by the emperor. Like
and you could say like extreme material beauty.
Yeah, and like in order to remain healthy, it needs the Desert Fathers. And in the same situation, in order for the church a little bit later in Constantinople to remain healthy and not go after the excesses of the emperor, it needs John Chrysostom, who is like calling for simplicity. So like there's always this balancing act that has to be playing out, and I think that's essentially what we're suggesting, is there has to be this balancing act, and the problem that exists among the iconoclastic and aniconic traditions is that there's no balance.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, not at all. Like what these other churches are doing is evil, so we're going to destroy their churches.
Yeah. Right.
That seems pretty unbalanced.
We're going to denounce them as not unchristian.
Right. But if these two are in proper relationship with one another, then the plain church has a message to the opulent church. And I say that because there are excesses that go along with the high church, and you need to be always aware of that. You need to always, I shouldn't say always aware, because but you do need to be aware. You do need to know there's a risk that I can put my faith in the wealth of the church. When I say that, I mean like the wealth and the beauty of the church becomes a necessity for me. And you do need somebody saying, no, that is not a necessity.
Yeah. Well, so there's a story. I can't remember who the bishop was and who the emperor was, but whoever it was, he was the bishop of Constantinople. And I'm thinking the emperor was Justinian, but I might be mistaken. Whichever emperor it was, he gilded the dome of the church in Constantinople. That means he covered it with gold. And the bishop, the guy whose church it was, said to him something along the lines, forgive me if I'm remembering this wrong, but something along the lines like, it's fine that you did this service for God. But just keep in mind that if one poor person in the city of Constantinople goes hungry, it will be held to your account. So it's like there's this balance that exists in this concept.
Yeah.
That there's a place for the beauty and promoting the beauty of the church, but don't neglect the other things. Don't neglect doing good for the poor.
I'll remember fewer of the details of this story than you did of the one that you were telling, but there is maybe when St. Peter's Basilica was built, there was a conversation. I assume a pope was a part of the exchange. But these two men looking at this grand building that's been constructed, and one says, Peter can no longer say, "Silver or gold I do not have," and then the other responds, "Neither can he say, 'Take up your mat and walk.'" There is something that you lose when you have wealth,
Right.
and you want poverty to remind you, like even when you're in the midst of wealth, you want poverty to still be a part of your church.
Yeah, so like you need in your church both these grand displays of beauty that are imaging something about God and how God works in his creation.
Right.
But then also this
And the
simplicity.
plain church needs to see that and be reminded of that.
Yeah.
That the beauty of God and the beauty of Zion is really, really important.
Yeah, right. Because it was like the just the sheer beauty of the tabernacle, like all of the gold and fine cloth, woven cloth, and images of cherubim, and all of these things that were a part of the tabernacle. Then later, Solomon's temple was even more grand and beautiful. And this amazing stonework. It's like God says these things are good.
Yeah, and it also, let's see, where is this? Oh boy, I can't give a book that this comes from in the Bible. But there are indications that the glories of the nations of the world will be brought into the temple.
Yeah, and there's also like things in the Psalms about the beauty of my house.
Yeah. Well, when I said the beauty of Zion, then I'm referencing a psalm that says, "Out of the beauty of Zion, God will shine forth." I mean, that makes it seem like beauty is awfully important.
Yeah, and then there's also the story of the conversion of the Slavic people, because the king of the Rus visits the different religions. But when he visits Constantinople and goes into the Hagia Sophia, he's just so struck by the beauty of the church and the beauty of the worship that he says, like, this is surely where God is.
Yeah.